Welcome back to Odd Occasions, where we explore the weirdest, wildest, and creepiest stories from around the world. Today, we're diving into the bizarre realm of people who claim to be addicted to some seriously disturbing activities. From compulsive collectors to terrifying impersonators, these stories prove that some habits can land you in jail, or worse. So, sit tight as we take you through 10 of the craziest and creepiest crimes people said they were addicted to. If you love strange tales, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more oddities delivered straight to your feed. Number 10. Collecting bird eggs. Someone who is referred to as a one-man machine for devastation, or a one-man crime wave, is defined as what kind of individual? Well, it turns out the person in question isn't a thug on the street. He's actually a 65-year-old British man. You're more likely to find him loitering around a nature reserve than a dark alley. This habitual jailbird, pun intended, was given his whammy third-mine prison sentence in April 2024 for his crimes against birds. Now, despite what you might be thinking, this doesn't exactly make him sound like a nice person, does it? Lingham had been caught on camera at a nature reserve the previous summer, collecting eggs from endangered species. And this wasn't his first time. He'd been convicted of 2 separate offenses before, both involving bird eggs. But here's where it gets even more bizarre. Despite the fact that there's a lucrative illegal market where he could have sold these eggs, he wasn't in it for the money. Oh no, he didn't continue to risk jail time because of profit. The most peculiar part of all this? He just wanted the eggs for his personal collection. Over 5,000 eggs, most of which came from endangered species. He was just obsessed with collecting them. Lingham admitted to his wrongdoings, but he also explained that he simply couldn't stop. He was addicted to collecting eggs. In addition to suspending his sentence for the year 2024, the judge also ordered him to undergo treatment. Let's hope this time he learns to put all his eggs in a different basket. Number 9. Carnivorous plant collecting. Bird egg collectors aren't the only ones willing to go to extreme lengths for rare finds. Other people share that same obsession, and sometimes it leads them down a dark path. Take Matt Orchard, an American Nepenthes collector, for example. His story is another peculiar instance where a collection spiraled into a destructive addiction. Now, Nepenthes, also known as pitcher plants, are a genus of tropical plants with pitcher-shaped insect traps attached to their leaves. Collectors absolutely love them. But here's the catch. Young Nepenthes take years to mature, and they can get pretty pricey. Matt's love affair with Nepenthes began in college. That's when he had an epiphany. He discovered merchants in Southeast Asia willing to mail him mature plants at incredibly low prices. But here's where it gets shady. Some of these vendors were illegally harvesting plants straight from rainforests. Matt knew this. In fact, one of his packages was even seized by authorities. But by that point, he couldn't stop. He was hooked. At any given time, Matt would order up to 35 plants at once. 35. In the end, though, it all came crashing down. Turns out, another local collector he had crossed paths with was actually an undercover investigator, looking into the illegal plant trade. A search warrant was issued for Matt's flat in Portland, and around 380 plants were seized. In exchange for his guilty plea, Matt was sentenced to 3 years of probation. And that, folks, is how a passion for carnivorous plants turned into an illegal and addictive obsession. Number 8. Baseball card collecting. Baseball card collecting, a hobby that's been around for generations. Usually, it's a harmless pastime. But, as with many collections, for some, the passion for rare items becomes overwhelming and can lead to unethical choices. In 2008, one collector's borderline addiction to baseball cards led to a serious breach of trust. This man, a postal worker from Maine, crossed the line when he used his position to steal a rare Cracker Jacqueline baseball card from 1915. The card had been auctioned on eBay for over $1,000, and at the time of the theft, it was en route to the buyer. Despite knowing the consequences, the collector couldn't resist. He later admitted that his love for baseball cards pushed him to make the wrong choice. When he pleaded guilty, his lawyer even cited that he had been seeking treatment for obsessive-compulsive behavior surrounding baseball cards. Luckily for him, he narrowly avoided jail time. His sentence of 6 months was suspended for 2 years, but the consequences didn't end there. He lost his job, was fined, and ordered to complete community service. Even something as innocent as collecting baseball cards can turn into an unhealthy obsession. Number 7. Hacking webcams. While hobbies like baseball card collecting or growing carnivorous plants are entirely legal, some obsessions cross a much darker line. Take, for example, watching people through their webcams without their knowledge. For Stephen Rigo. From Leeds, UK, this invasive activity became an addiction. In 2015, Rigo was convicted of voyeurism and hacking offenses after using malware to take control of people's computers. For over the 3 years he would spend anywhere from 5 to 12 hours a day, monitoring unsuspecting victims through their webcams. Rigo described himself as addicted to monitoring people via their computers, which even left officials at the UK's National Crime Agency shocked. They called his case one of the more extreme examples of this type of behavior. The evidence against him? Screenshots he had saved on his computer, some of which included explicit content. His primary focus had even been spying on cybersex sessions. In the end, Rigo received a suspended jail sentence. He was ordered to complete community service and, of course, hand over his computer. It's a chilling reminder that some addictions can lead to deeply disturbing and harmful actions. Number 6. Graffiti. Graffiti, a form of expression for some, but a criminal act in many places. It may not seem as serious as other crimes, but for some, tagging can feel like an addiction. In fact, some people get such a kick out of graffiti that it becomes a compulsive activity, requiring treatment to stop. A psychologist from New Zealand explained that while tagging addiction isn't a recognized diagnosis, people can indeed become hooked on the adrenaline it brings. He made this comment after an Auckland tagger known as Zan was convicted of defacing one of the country's most prestigious art galleries. Zan himself claimed he was addicted to graffiti, and surprisingly, groups like the Street Art Council agree this may be the case. The organization even runs a helpline for those who can't stop tagging, and they've shared some of the calls on their website and YouTube. Some individuals have become so consumed by this urge that they've continued tagging even within their own homes. It's clear that for some, graffiti isn't just a form of expression, it's an obsession that's tough to break. Number 5. Stock market trading. Most people know that gambling can become addictive, but it's not hard to see how something similar could happen in the financial markets, which offer the same kind of excitement and unpredictability when it comes to payoffs. For most, at least. But for Navinder Sarao, the thrill of trading became an all-consuming addiction. In the early 2000s, Sarao traded his way to a fortune estimated at $70 million. All from the comfort of a bedroom in his parents' London home. His obsession with trading drove him to make reckless choices, including engaging in fraudulent trades, which eventually led to his downfall. His actions didn't just hurt his own reputation. they triggered massive consequences. Sarao was extradited to the United States, where he was charged with fraud and accused of contributing to the Mox flash crash. 2010. This event caused U.S. stock prices to nosedive and then recover within half an hour. Despite the severity of the charges, Sarao's sentence was surprisingly light. He was placed under house confinement for just 1 year. So, why did he get off so easily? It turns out Sarao wasn't in it for the money. He was truly addicted to the act of trading. U.S. prosecutors confirmed that he was not motivated by any wealth whatsoever. In fact, the most expensive thing he ever bought with his fortune was a 5,000 Tsuz car. It's a stark reminder that even success in high-stakes arenas like the stock market can turn into a dangerous obsession. Number 4. Making hoax emergency calls. While some obsessions like Navinder Sarao's can lead to unlikely rewards such as a massive fortune, others can put people directly in danger. One such case was that of Thelma Dennis, a woman whose addiction to making fake emergency calls gripped the UK's attention during the 1990s and 2000s. For 24 years, Dennis was repeatedly charged for making hoax calls to emergency services, falsely reporting bombs or other emergencies. She was brought to court 60 times, for the same offense. Even after serving multiple prison sentences, she couldn't stop herself from dialing in these fake emergencies. Between 1996 and 2003, Dennis made over 2,000 false reports, averaging more than 5 a week. Each time, she wasted the valuable time of emergency responders, putting others in real danger by diverting resources. When she was released from prison in 2003, Dennis vowed to stop and sought help from a specialist. As part of her treatment, she even underwent electrode therapy, a drastic measure that caused her to scream in pain whenever she dialed the emergency number. The therapy worked. For a while, for 4 years, she refrained from making any fake calls, but in 2008, Dennis relapsed and was convicted again for the same offense. However, she managed to avoid further prison time. Since then, there have been no reported incidents involving her, suggesting that perhaps, after decades of turmoil, she was finally able to break free from her addiction. Number 3. Impersonation. Stories of people impersonating professionals, like pilots and doctors, occasionally make headlines. One such case occurred in 2013 when Philippe Gernard, a Frenchman, managed to disguise himself as a pilot and gain access to the cockpit of a U.S. Airways flight. Despite his bold attempt, Gernard's disguise included a very bad fake badge, which inevitably led to his arrest. What made his hoax even more perplexing was that there was no clear reward for his risky stunt. This case isn't an isolated one. People have been caught impersonating various professionals, but why do they do it? According to Charles Ford, a professor of psychiatry, these individuals experience a rush of excitement when they successfully deceive others, an emotional high he compares to a hit of cocaine. Ford explains that this thrill is what makes con artists seem addicted to repeating their actions. Take Matthew Scheit, an 18-year-old from Florida, for example. In 2012, he was convicted of impersonating a medical assistant at a hospital, but his story doesn't end there. Just 4 months after his arrest, Scheit was caught again, this time posing as a law enforcement officer. A forensic psychiatrist even noted that some imposters may actually start to believe the lies they tell, further blurring the lines between reality and deception. For some, the addiction to fooling others can lead to repeated, dangerous behavior, and in many cases, there's no real reward beyond the rush of pulling off the con. Number 2. Vampirism. there are some compulsive behaviors far more disturbing than those we've covered so far. One such case occurred in Turkey in 2013, where a troubling addiction to human blood developed. But surprisingly, it had a somewhat positive ending. The story centers on a 23-year-old man who began by cutting himself and drinking his own blood. This self-inflicted habit soon spiraled into an addiction, and he began consuming human blood regularly. His obsession escalated to the point where he convinced his father to obtain bags of blood from local blood banks. Instead of curbing his need, this only worsened his addiction. The man described his craving for blood as urgent as breathing. He soon found himself unable to wait for blood donations, and things took a dangerous turn. An imaginary companion urged him to stab people so he could drink their blood, which he attempted multiple times. Tragically, he succeeded in consuming the blood of others before finally being transferred to a hospital. Doctors diagnosed him with clinical vampirism, a rare and deeply unsettling condition characterized by an uncontrollable compulsion to drink blood and a confused sense of identity. Fortunately, after receiving 6 weeks of treatment, his desire for blood began to subside. Remarkably, the blood he consumed caused no lasting harm. It's a chilling reminder of how some compulsions can drive people to shocking extremes, with consequences that defy belief. Number 1. Extreme body modification. In 2024, a chilling case emerged from the UK when 7 men were convicted for crimes related to a disturbing and extreme obsession. Their ringleader's attorney described the shared activity as an addiction, one tied to a website known as the Eunuch Maker. And as the name suggests, that's exactly what they were doing, but on a scale that prosecutors claimed had never been seen before. 13 people lost their lives as a result of these men's actions, and, shockingly, they also performed surgeries on themselves. One defendant was found with intesticles in his freezer, believed to be his own. Meanwhile, the group's leader, Marius Gustafsson, had undergone radical surgeries, including the removal of his penis and a leg. Another defendant had testicles stolen from the freezer as part of this bizarre and grotesque obsession. Gustafsson was diagnosed with bodily integrity dysphoria, a rare disorder that causes individuals to feel compelled to have healthy body parts amputated. According to his lawyer, his obsession with extreme body modification began after his 11-year marriage ended. For him, the surgeries became a twisted way to regain control over his life. But it didn't stop with self-mutilation. Gustafsson and the others used his website to encourage and assist others in performing these horrific acts. All the men involved eventually entered guilty pleas. And there you have it. 10 bizarre and unsettling crimes. People said they just couldn't stop committing. Which one shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're hungry for more mind-bending stories, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out. Thanks for watching Odd Occasions, where the weirdness never ends. Until next time, stay curious.